I believe his name is, was dumped as crown prince. So he was actually the next person in line. The son of Abdullah was in line to be the next king, but he was removed and the brother took over, which is what had been traditionally happening, right? And because the brother took over, now he is naming his son. Ambassador Joseph Westphal, the American envoy in Riyadh, traveled that month to Jeddah planning to see Mohammed bin Naif. Mohammed bin Naif is CIA's favorite person in Saudi. Okay, what happened? But he was routed at the airport to see Mohammed bin Salman instead. So these are the types of things that are going on. So Mohammed bin Salman, under the name of corruption and all this, got all of the people that he could find under corruption that were actually just his opponents, got them in Ritz-Carlton, and a lot of them, we don't know what their whereabouts are now, including many of the children of the former Prince Abdullah. Well, obviously this is going to lead to many, many problems, right? So, the same month, longtime Saudi intelligence official Saad bin Jabri visited the CIA director in Washington during a private visit. Jabri, a close advisor to Mohammed bin Naif, who is very close to the CIA, so one of his advisors, Jabri, he goes to CIA, meets with them. Now, King hadn't told Salman about his trip. When Jabri returned, he was fired. Now he lives in exile. In May 2016, Prince Turki bin Abdullah and his closest advisor, Ubaid, met with a series of CIA and State Department people to discuss Mohammed bin Salman. But eventually what happened is, Obama was impressed by the vision and energy that Mohammed bin Salman brought to his reform agenda. You know, women can drive and this and that. But all of this is to appease the other concerns of the West and so on and so forth, when in fact his real agenda has been to consolidate his own power. Thornton also invited Michael okay, so now what happened is one of the things was, okay, we're going to have reforms. Now, you know, bankers tend to control everything. So one of the bankers, Michael Klein, a New York investment banker who at the time was rumored to be a key advisor to Mohammed bin Salman on his plan to raise as much as $100 billion through an initial public offering, the IPO, okay, initial public offering of some shares of Saudi Aramco. Now, you know, Saudi Aramco is a big company, and they wanted to make this to go private. But the Abdullah's camp, they didn't want that. They wanted to go to the Chinese and have the Chinese trade American bonds that they had given as loan to America for oil. And to bring in money into Saudi Arabia using this tactic rather than creating, and then you'll see what happened. So, through initial public offering of some shares of Saudi Aramco versus Ubaid, who is Abdullah's son's advisor, the Chinese should raise cash by working with Saudis on a barter deal to trade some Chinese vast-style block of U.S. Treasury bonds in exchange for Saudi oil. Saudi intelligence service is, and then I'll just quickly move a little bit ahead. So what happened as Saudi Arabia decided that all the people that are going against Mohammed bin Salman need to be brought back into the country. And when Abdullah's children were talking to the Chinese, they made a lot of attempts to bring people back. So, for example, let me just read this to you. Ubaid, who was the advisor to Prince Abdullah's son, was stopped by more than 40 plainclothes Chinese security men. The leader of the group, speaking in Arabic, is said to have told Ubaid, "We are the Ministry of the State Security. Are you going to cooperate or not?" Ubaid surrendered. His head and body were covered in a bag so tight that he couldn't see or move unassisted. He was taken to an interrogation facility somewhere in Beijing, handcuffed to the chair. A Chinese intelligence officer asserted that Ubaid was a terrorist financier, who was organizing a plot by Pakistani militants to disrupt the G20 summit scheduled for next month. A source briefed on the case said, "Where are you hiding the terrorists? Where are you hiding Pakistani militiamen?" demanded the interrogation. Fortunately, as this was happening, the Chinese were doing their own investigation. The Ministry of the State Security of the Chinese technicians were examining Ubaid's iPad and cell phones and checking the information against their own sources. Quickly, the Chinese concluded that an error had indeed been made. The Saudi officials gave them a false information about Ubaid to arrest him as a terrorist and extradite him back to the kingdom. So they found out, wait, this is wrong information. What did the Chinese do? They protected him and took him to Switzerland, okay? And they told him, you are stuck in a power play in your country between two powerful princes. And what the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if this interpretation is correct, would be even more true. If there are two groups, there could be three major groups. That there is a treasure there, which is the oil or whatever it is, and there are different groups that are fighting for that treasure, three groups, as the Prophet said. And then, Saudi Arabia had to apologize. It was an embarrassment, and all of that happened. But the Chinese were pretty upset. What is the point? And this is also some of the things that maybe someone took advantage of and then killed the journalist that was in Turkey's. We don't know what's the truth of the scenario, ultimately, right? But what we do know is this. We know we have enough information from enough sources that the royal family in Saudi Arabia is at war with itself. And the question is, who will take advantage of that? Who will take advantage of that? Which neighbor because as the minister of Israel even said, chaos in the Middle East is a benefit to us. It means more security. If they fight with each other, it's benefit to us. So while Iran and Saudi Arabia are fighting each other, Greater Israel is going to become a reality, and it will be the only practical and logical thing to do to actually bring stability to the area, to increase your borders, because they're the only ones that can bring stability to the area. So those people who want to do good have to advise the royal family, not based upon self-interest, but the interest of the whole Muslim Ummah, to keep the stability. You have to look towards stability. Bringing in military weapons, buying military weapons from Russia, from the US, is not going to bring stability. It's just another reason for war. And so, you have to look for long-term stability. Buying weapons is not the solution. And that's primarily what, because Saudi's main fear is not other agendas, right? It's not how can other people take advantage of their situation. It's only how Iran can take advantage of their situation. And Iran has its own reasons, I mentioned, to feel like they need to start taking advantage of the situation. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us and guide us and at least prolong the state that we're in, because we as a Muslim Ummah are not ready for a total collapse of the way things are right now. Because we don't have the intelligence or the manpower to bring about something better after this collapse. At least I don't think so. I'd like to hear your comments. Please subscribe to my channel. Jazakumullahu khairan. Thank you for staying with me. And I hope that you did enjoy this. Now, I do want to end with one thing that's very important, is ultimately the sayings of the Prophet ﷺ on this issue. يقتل عند كنوذكم ثلاثة كلكم ابن الخليفة. All of them will be children of a king, and they will fight over three groups of them three of them will fight over a treasure. Okay? Three of them, all of them sons of a Khalifa, will fight over your treasure, and none of them will be able to take it, the Prophet said. وَلَا يَنْصُرْ Not one of them will be able to take over and get those treasures, okay? And then the Prophet said, after that, when that kingship will fall, when that situation will happen, then the rise will happen. This is what the Prophet said. In another hadith, the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, again, these are authentic sayings of the Prophet, تَكُونُ خِلَافٍ إِنْ مَوْتِ الْخَلِيفَةِ فَيَخْرُجُ رَجُلٌ مِنْ أَهْلِ الْمَدِينَةِ حَارِبٍ إِلَى مَكَّةِ. And then after the death of a Khalifa, then the chaos will be there, and then one of these people will go to Mecca, and the people will force their bay'ah on him, and he will be the Mahdi. أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم, the Prophet said basically a disagreement will occur at the death of a Khalifa. Okay? And a man of the people of Medina will come flying forth to Mecca. And over there he will be forced to take Bay'ah. So are we headed towards this scenario in Saudi Arabia? Question mark. A very serious question mark. Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.